Hello, everyone. I'm Kerry Daigle. Tonight, you're in for a special night. This is a Keep Punching University Zoom call. And we've got a gentleman tonight that we're going to ask some very interesting questions to. And many of you that have gotten involved with us, maybe recently or in the last 3 or 4 years, 5 years, maybe don't know enough about this gentleman, maybe the last 6 years. But we're going to be able to give you more information on who he is, how he was a big and major reason that we're having the successes we're having today in the Juice Plus company. So John Blair is a shareholder in the company, and he's an advisor to the senior management still today. Now, before the studies and before preferred customer, the beginning of Juice Plus has a lot of history behind it. Mickey and I in Louisiana started sponsoring around 1993, 94 medical doctors to endorse this whole food concept. And thanks to John, we had the right guidance and mentorship on how to work with these medical professionals. Then there were two young ladies, Wendy Campbell, a registered nurse who came on the scene out of nowhere, and a biochemist by the name of Dr. Mitra Ray, who jumped aboard with her scientific background and both went on to develop hugely successful businesses. Now, I could talk about so many other people. I really could. I don't want to leave anyone out. But this is the beginning of Juice Plus. We developed the first medical doctor to make national marketing director with Dr. Barry Bone, a physician and ophthalmologist that many of you have not met. Many of the medical experts started joining at that time. Didn't know what to do. John, we'd call him on the phone. Help us. What do we do? What do we do? John was our executive vice president at that time and making a lot of decisions to really brand Juice Plus. He was a branding and what I call marketing visionary as a senior vice president. It's Mr. John Blair, who could see the product of the company's future in Juice Plus. And he started an incredible group of researchers that developed to this day almost 50 double-blind, placebo-controlled studies published in gold standard medical journals. The rest is history. Thanks to John's relentless work ethic, and believe me, this guy could work, put in the hours like nobody I've ever seen within the corporate office. He went to work to make Juice Plus his goal. I want to make this a #1 encapsulated research product of its kind on the globe. He said, not in the USA, on the globe. So John, why don't you start about tonight's call, a little history about yourself for the people that haven't met you first, if you don't mind, and then maybe a little bit about the beginning of Juice Plus.
Thank you, Kerry. And it's so great to be on the call tonight and see so many familiar faces from all these years together with Juice Plus. It's a thrill to be with all of you tonight. And before I go any further, Kerry mentioned Dr. Barry Bone, and we just want to honor the passing of Barry's wife, Claire. Her service was today. We are a family, this business. And when there's a disturbance in the force, we all feel it. And we're feeling for Dr. Barry tonight. And I don't know if most of you know it, but Kerry Daigle was the national marketing director who had the vision of bringing medical healthcare professionals, doctors, into our business. Once the research got started, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, he actually had the vision of going out and recruiting a couple of doctors based on the early research with the idea that they could actually partner with us in this business. And now there are thousands of Juice Plus doctors all over the world. And one of those pioneers, one of the very first of all time, was Dr. Barry Bone. And we had some wonderful experiences. And I noticed Jan Du Bois is on the call tonight. In the early days of the research, as doctors started joining us, I used to have a monthly call from my office at home for all of the new Juice Plus doctors, and we would review the clinical research and help explain. And this is how I did it. They would all ask questions, and the two people on the call that would answer would be Dr. John Weiss from NAI and Dr. Rick Du Bois. And they literally educated all of us in terms of the significance of what Juice Plus was proving in the clinical setting. And we've been so blessed. And so we're thinking about Barry, one of those pioneers tonight. And we're thinking about Kerry for his vision. And I'm just very thankful and grateful, Kerry, that you saw this. For me personally, I grew up in Southern California, went back east to school, got an Ivy League education, and then came back to UCLA to get my MBA, and worked for Price Waterhouse for a number of years. We won't go into too much detail about that, but it was they were exciting times. I was the guy with the envelopes for the Academy Awards for 7 or 8 years back in the day, and was on the board of directors of the Academy. So I knew Charlton Heston and all, so many of the actors from 50 plus years ago. But then I moved on to do the turnaround of a company called Yokohama Tire North America, which was losing money and bankrupt and struggling in the marketplace. And the team I put together, we turned that company from 25 million to 100 million in 4 years when the tire industry didn't grow at all. And we changed everything. We changed the computer system, we changed the ordering system, we changed the marketing system. And shortly after, within a decade, they were $1 billion company. And from there, I went on and had my own consulting business, and I was involved in mergers and acquisitions. And I met the founders at NSA, which the company became Juice Plus. And they were looking for a partner. They were in a transition themselves, and they needed some help. And I worked with the company for a couple of years behind the scenes. And those were exciting times with Jay Martin, George Petit, Frank Swords, and some of the other original founders. And the funny thing was, they were going and blowing like you can't believe. They were 4 times in a row in the Inc. 500 fastest growing private companies in America. And I had the audacity to tell Jay, my friend, this train is going off a cliff. It's unsustainable because the model is built on money. And when it turns, people are going to leave. Things are going to change. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And he said, you know what? You may be right. He said, but we're so busy counting money, we can't think about that. We got a tiger by the tail here. Speaking of LSU, he said, I tell you what, why don't you come and join us? And if this happens, figure out what we're going to do next. And so that was my job. I joined back in the mid 80s. I joined NSA behind the scenes, and it was my job to figure out the future direction of the company in the event that something like this happened. And sure enough, it did. And back in 1993, actually March 25th, on a Friday in San Diego, we introduced a number of products, including something called the Knowledge Network. We opened the country. We had all sorts of stuff going on. But one thing we did that didn't get a lot of attention at the time was introduce Juice Plus. And I remember being on the stage, introducing the product in front of people, and they're looking at me like, what is he talking about? Fruits and vegetables in a capsule? What is this? We had been a company that sold water filters and air filters. And prior to that, we sold the original home fire protection system. And these were all appliances that were about the size of a basketball and cost a couple $100. And I was actually looking at juicing. Remember the juicing craze in the late 80s and early 90s? I was about ready to buy a juicing company for our company. And the only problem was it was just too much work. It was healthy. It was a great idea. But most people, most of the 20 million people that bought the juicers in the late 80s and early 90s, within a few weeks had them sitting up on the top shelf of the kitchen, gathering dust next to the fondue pot. But juicing was a great idea. And in that process, I met a naturopath who was actually selling juicers for the Juice Man. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember that commercial where Jay Cordish, the Juice Man, had white hair and a nice tan, and he talked about how juicing brought his health back to life, and he was an evangelist for juicing. And Smokey was following up all over the country in hotels selling juicers for him. And I met Smokey, and he said, he put me on to the best juicing company in America, and we were that close to buying that company, except for the convenience factor. And while I was talking to Smokey, he said, you know, if you don't do that deal, he said, I've got an idea. I said, what's that? He said, you know, if we could do this juicing on a large scale, you know, we could have produce powders that could be delivered to people in a convenient and affordable form. And I thought, man, that is a great idea. How come you haven't done it? And he said, well, it's very important that we dry the juice at low temperature. And everybody I've talked to tells me it can't be done. Well, my father used to motivate me when I was a kid, kind of stick his finger in my chest. He said, you know, I think this job's a little too tough for you. I don't think you could do it. That's all he needed to say. And it was going to get done. And a bell went off when Smokey said that to me. And I said, you know, I can't believe that that's not possible. I'll tell you what, you license the idea to us, and I'll put the team together to figure out how to do this. And you come along for the ride, and it's going to be a win-win for everybody. So that's what we did, Kerry. We've started down that path. I got teamed up with the folks at Natural Alternatives International out in California. I got a food scientist to figure out the issue of drying the juice at low temperature. It was kind of complicated back then, but it's, you know, we broke the code, figured it out, and we had these powders. But the rest was not yet history. And it was because what we were going to do is mix those powders in crystal clear filtered NSA drinking water.
Well, I got a good question for you. Mickey and I were talking earlier, and she came up with a good question for you. She did. She said, would you mind sharing how the powders ended up in a capsule?
It is quite a story. So we finally got this done, and we had these prototype powders. We started with the veggies. So we're talking cabbage, kale, parsley, spinach, carrots, beets, tomatoes. The powders, as you know, are green, but when they're mixed in water, the idea was we're going to put these powders and mix them in NSA filtered water and drink it like a juice. Only problem was so we got Jay Martin sitting in my office. He's the founder of the company. And other folks you might recall, like Ron Watkins, Ben Tacker, and Steve Williams. And we're sitting around a table at the end of my office, and we've got these powders. The Smokey's there, and we take a spoonful of those powders and mix it into that water, and it turned brown, just this dark brown color. And Jay Martin, who's got a great sense of humor, kind of looked at that and he says, you know, Smokey, this looks like mud. You know, and then he took a taste. He said, I think we need to put some mud in that, improve the taste. Oh, poor old Smokey was he was dejected. And, I was sitting there right there, and I had met the folks at NAI with one of the other products we were looking to launch in March of '93, called the Knowledge Network. Mark Leduce, who was the president of NAI, his mother had an educational product that was in the Knowledge Network. And so anyway, I knew, I had met them, gone down to San Diego, met the whole family, and they were in the dietary supplement business. And I had just met them just months earlier. And I thought, you know what we can do? We can put this in a capsule, and then we eliminate the taste. And Jay looked at me and he said, well, can we get enough in there to do anybody any good? And my answer was, I told him the truth. I said, I don't know, but we can go into the lab and we can test it and we can see, see what it's made of. Well, by golly, the tests were so positive that, Kerry, that actually was the seed that became the start of the clinical research program, because we realized we got a product that's going to stand up to science and scientific examination. So that's how it happened. It was a bad day turned into a good one for Smokey.
Well, for everyone that's listening in, just so you can kind of envision this, this is when Juice Plus first started. But think about this a minute. Through John's ideas on what to do to move this and market it and brand it and really put the right package together, it took a lot of work. But think about this. Here's this product comes out. The average sale is $50, but yet we end up developing a product with an average sale of $50 that becomes a multi-billion-dollar sales product. Can you imagine that? Average sale of $50. That is amazing. And what a story. There's two questions, John. Would you mind sharing the importance of the CRN? For those of you that are listening in, that's the Council for Responsible Nutrition in Washington, D.C., and your history with them, along with the clinical research program and how it stacks in the nutraceutical industry.
Those are great questions, Kerry. It took a while to get Juice Plus up and running, and some of the elder statespeople on this call, put in a lot of hard work and a lot of miles to make that happen. But now we got Juice Plus up and rolling, and the beauty of it was that it was completely unique, whole food-based nutrition, all the nutrients from fruits and vegetables, not just isolated, fragmented, individual nutrients, or even maybe 30 of them put together in a multivitamin. This is thousands of different nutrients in those powders, whole food, absorbable. We'll talk a little more about that before we're done. So now we're doing strategic planning as a company. And strategic planning, you do what's called a SWOT analysis. You look at strengths, that's the S, weaknesses, O is opportunities, and T is threats. SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats. And as a senior management group, we're thinking, what could go wrong? And one of the things is regulation by the government, the FDA, Washington, D.C. There was talk about the FDA requiring pre-market research for supplements to be sold, all kinds of things. And well, I said, well, the best way we're going to solve that problem is get involved, get to Washington, D.C. and get involved. And so we joined the most prestigious industry association for dietary supplements in the world, called the Council for Responsible Nutrition. Every major player in the business, including Pfizer, Walmart, lots of big companies that sell vitamins, Bayer aspirin, companies you wouldn't realize, massive companies, were members. And I joined, was on the board, and then became the chairman of the board. And the most interesting thing happened. Uh, the person who followed me as chairman was a legendary guy by the name of Harvey Camille. And Harvey had been the executive VP of a brand of product that is very prominent in Walgreens and Walmart and big box retail. Massive company. It'd been sold, let's say 2010 for $3 billion to the Carlyle Group. And Harvey's sitting there with a handful of vitamins and downing them, I mean, 20, 30, 40, and he's downing them with several glasses of water. And he's asking me about, well, how about your company? What do you do? And I explained whole food-based nutrition. And I said, we got clinical research. Harvey kind of stopped and looked at me and he says, you mean double-blind, placebo-controlled? I said, yeah. He said, on humans? I said, yeah. We had spent a lot of time at CRN talking about trying to find a different paradigm other than what's called the drug paradigm, which is the gold standard, double-blind, placebo-controlled, crossover type studies. We spent a lot of time at CRN trying, can we find another way where vitamins will finally look good in clinical research? And here came Juice Plus that already had all these studies and already looked good. Harvey was blown away. And the whole council was blown away. Now, these were good companies trying to do it, trying to make good quality products for the American consumer. The problem was the concept was flawed. The idea of an isolated, fragmented, individualized, or even synthesized nutrient out of a lab is totally different. And in most cases, because it doesn't have all these other cofactors for absorption, they don't get absorbed by the body and pass right through. We actually had a calcium working group because virtually every woman in the country over 50 was recommended to take a calcium supplement. And calcium supplements are very non-bioavailable. They basically go through you like a bullet. I was actually asked years ago to speak at the first World Bone Density Conference. And this doctor from Italy called me and he says, Mr. Blair, he says, we are putting this conference together and I would like you to come in and speak. And I said, why? He says, well, you probably don't know. He says, but as we have organized this meeting, the scientists are sharing that people taking your product are improving their bone density. He says, so why is that? I said, I have no idea. Where's the conference? He says, now this is early on. He said, it's on the big island of Hawaii. I said, I'll find out. I will be there. And sure enough, we found a study done in 1993 at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland that said for calcium to be absorbed, it has to be in the presence of phosphorus, potassium, niacin, vitamin K, vitamin C, and a whole host of other nutrients, all of which are in cruciferous vegetables, cabbage, broccoli, kale, etc., none of which are in a calcium supplement. And so this is the number one problem of research for most dietary supplements is regardless of what's in the pill or the capsule, they don't get absorbed. And so anyway, we went to the conference and I learned a lot about our product and absorption and the importance of all of those thousands of nutrients working together in nature's balance to be absorbed. And from that point forward, I mean, the CRN folks were just, like I said, just blown away. And the industry still struggles trying to find a way for vitamin mineral products to perform better in clinical studies.
Well, it's just only what's happened there a lot too, John. Thank you very much for all you've done with CRN, because that just brought us to another level. I mean, there's just no competition out there. But I'm gonna kind of put you on the spot with this question a little bit. I know you're not in the home office every day, but you're on top of everything that's going on. in the field, especially with new products that are coming out. How about some updates on any clinical research today? Is there anything you can share with us?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I've got a call with Stuart Savaji at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So yes, I am connected. I'm available. I don't want to be a nuisance to anybody, but you know, some of that experience does come in handy. And Stuart and I are talking in the morning. Kerry, I can tell you the clinical research program is alive and kicking and stronger than ever. We have a fellow in Graz, Austria, by the name of Manfred Lamprecht, who has a double PhD, his own research lab. He's a tenured professor at the University of Graz, and he heads up our clinical research program globally. And we are looking at just things that the forefront, actually, the cutting edge of dietary supplementation and food and nutrigenomics. Now, at this point, we've got, as you mentioned, 45, 50 published clinical studies. But it's important, and you mentioned this, Gary, but I don't want this fact to just pass. These are the leading universities and research centers around the world. I'm just going to read a few, just to give you an idea. King's College in London, Medical University of Vienna, Tokyo Women's Medical University, University of Cambridge in England, University of Newcastle in Australia, University of Sydney, University of Toronto, Vanderbilt, UCLA, MD Anderson. I mean, these are major hospitals and research centers. And it's very important to understand that these institutions put their name on the paper. If you've gone onto our website or you've ever looked at a Juice Plus study, it talks about fruit and vegetable concentrates, but it is published by such and such a professor from this university. So they're putting their name on this study and their reputation behind it. Now, this ain't no little nothing, you know, as we used to say in Memphis. And at this point, Kerry, we've got number one, bioavailability and nutrients, 20 different studies and counting, showing that Juice Plus gets absorbed. And every single time we've tested it, it has performed. We've got 8 studies already and more coming on heart health, 5 studies and more coming on the immune system. And let's face it, in the world we live in today, having a strong immune system is crucial. The flu season is upon us. We've just kind of worked our way, hopefully, through this pandemic, but it's not going to be the last. We live in a whole new world, and strengthening your immune system is crucial, you know, to everyday health. We've got studies on DNA and nutrigenomics, one I'll mention in a minute. Oxidative stress, inflammation, chronic inflammation. Now, the leading causes or underlying issues of all chronic disease are almost always oxidative stress and inflammation, premature aging in the body, and an overactive immune system and inflammatory response. We've got 2 studies on lung health. We've got 2 studies on healthy skin, 2 studies on dental health. We even have on weight management, and we've got one on brain health and more coming, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So we've got a depth and a breadth of science that is second to none. You know, there's nothing else in the world like this. And here's another thing. In addition to the name of the hospitals and universities on the studies, these investigators put their own name on the line. It is published under their name. So people like Ian Chappell, who did our dental research at the University of Birmingham in England, he writes textbooks that are used in most American dental schools. He is a legend globally in the industry. Lovell Jones, who was one of the 6 authors of The Well Diet, which was the best post-breast cancer treatment for women for the last 40 years. Alan Goldfarb, who was tops in sports nutrition and science from the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. You know, he's top of the field. Did our first study on exercise science. Helmut Thies, who's from Austria, one of the top people in the world on antioxidants. Samir Saman, who was at the Sydney University, he was head of the biochemistry department, the largest department and the largest university in all of Australia. I mean, so these people are legends who are putting their name on Juice Plus, and I'll let you in on a little secret. They also take Juice Plus, they and their families. And that tells you a lot. My secretary used to keep herself really busy because they'd be calling her once a month. Don't let me run out. You know, my family needs this. We're working on this. Their kids took it. I mean, we have a track record, and this is stuff you don't read about, you know, in the actual publication. Amazing, amazing stuff. And so let me just talk about real quick, a couple of studies that have come out recently that have impacted me. The first was done at the University of Newcastle in Sydney, Australia. This was originally a study on chronic inflammation and reduction of inflammation. So the subjects took Juice Plus for 8 weeks. And on average, there was a significant decrease in total cholesterol for all the subjects. LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol. Decreased TNF alpha, which is a sign of important inflammatory marker. Decreased systolic blood pressure, increased lean muscle mass, and decreased total systemic inflammation, all in one study. Now, if I knew just that, I'd be taking this product for the rest of my life, but there's more. They went on into the area we call nutrigenomics. Now, you may not have heard of this word. Perhaps you've heard of epigenetics. Years ago, it was believed that our DNA was basically a blueprint for our life health outcome. If our parents got heart disease, we were going to get heart disease. If our parents got cancer, we were going to get cancer, etc. Now we know that that is not necessarily the case. We all carry positive and negative potential in our genes, and good lifestyle, epigenetics, can turn on the positive genes and turn off the negative genes. So they looked at a subset of epigenetics called nutrigenomics, which means good diet can turn on positive genes and turn off negative genes. Well, let me tell you what happened. In that 16 weeks of the study, we impacted over 1,600 genes. We upregulated 1,146 positive genes, and we downregulated or switched off 486 negative genes. Now, I'm telling you, in addition, we have impacted 5 major metabolic pathways. At this time, the industry was only talking about, you know, someday they're going to do studies on this thing called nutrigenomics, and we're sitting there, we've already done it. And what this says is that good diet helps to optimize your health potential. You know, we all have a limited lifespan, but we want to live as healthy, with as good quality of life for as long as possible. And good lifestyle habits, and particularly good diet, can have a significant impact. And we showed it in a Juice Plus study that is absolutely cutting edge. Now, there's one more, and I'll do this quick. I noticed on the call, there's a few people, you may not be as old as me, but Kerry, I'm going to be 76 in just a couple of weeks here coming on. Feeling great. And obviously for most of us over 50, cognitive strength and cognitive power is very important. We want to keep sharp. We want our memory to be good. We had a study published from the University of Murcia, Spain last year. And this study was double-blind, placebo-controlled crossover type. 16 weeks of one group on Juice Plus and the other group on placebo. 4 weeks of washout where they both did neither, and then they switched. The group that had been on Juice Plus went on the placebo, and the group on the placebo went on Juice Plus. This study used 3 major world-recognized cognitive tests: the Stroop test, which measures selective attention, the Tessin test, which is executive function of the brain, and the RISC test, which evaluates working memory and all these other factors. Here's the crazy thing. While the groups were on the product, across the board, every measure of every test was significantly improved for the people taking Juice Plus in the first group, and then later the second group. And while those same people were on the placebo, they got no improvement whatsoever. So there was a dramatic difference. When they took Juice Plus, they got improvement. Let me just tell you what the supplementation with encapsulated fruit, vegetable, and berry juice powder concentrate, rich in polyphenols, resulted in improved executive function, working memory, selective and sustained attention, and speed of processing. It was, Jim and Kerry, a slam dunk. Every single measure of every test had significant improvement. And the average people in the test were only 50 years old. So they were still at a very high functioning level, but they still got better taking the Juice Plus product. Now I'm telling you, if I just only know those 2 studies, I am on this product for the rest of my life. End of story. And
Wow.
in the famous words of Dr. Rick DuBois, there is no other, and this is what I learned at CRN, there is no other nutritional support product, not a nutraceutical, not a pharmaceutical, anywhere in the world that delivers the wide range of clinically proven benefits that you get from taking Juice Plus. Simply put, Juice Plus is the best nutritional support product ever made, period. And a lot of people put their
I'm going to take that quote and use it. So we're going to use that quote. That's powerful. It really is, John. And you know, one thing, I'm getting some text right now. A couple of texts I got is, number one, what about competition? Well, if everyone's listened to what we just talked about, there is no competition. Absolutely none. I don't even know why people would even ask that question. It does not even exist. There's no competition. John, what's your take on that?
You know, over the years, and this has happened 8 or 9 times, you guys have been around long enough, you realize we had some of the people who left our manufacturing partner, NAI, tried to start a new company. They tried to hook up with other multi-level companies, other nutrition companies. So there have been copycats of Juice Plus almost since the beginning. There was even one in Costco years ago that on the label of the box, it said, compared to Juice Plus, okay? That, by the way, was made by an Indian pharmaceutical company, bought a dietary supplement business in Chatsworth, California, and tried to make a cheap imitation of Juice Plus. The scientific staff was so upset at the corners that they were cutting. They all quit. And yet that product stayed in Costco for 3 years before people figured out it's not worth it. Okay, so now we got something going on in the marketplace today. You see some advertising on TV. Let me just tell you, this is another cheap imitation, and I'll tell you why. And they have borrowed our story and our research with none of their own. They even have pictures of our farms in some of their marketing material. Now, first of all, who would want to do business with a company like that? Okay. But here's the major difference. It's called, now, many of you know that Jay Martin didn't want to do Juice Plus. He had a very good reason. There were a lot of companies in our business that were in nutrition, and he didn't like, many direct selling companies, and he didn't want to seem like a Johnny come lately. But I was able to convince him that we had something unique and something that was sustainable and something that actually worked. And part of the reason is we juice first. This was Smokey's original idea. Remember, we got to dry the slurry at low temperature. So we grind the product through a series of shear pumps and reduce the particle size to infinitesimal size. And why is that important? It's important because all these phytonutrients we're talking about, like the polyphenols that are mentioned in the Murcia, Spain study, they're locked in the fiber of the plants. And generally, people do not chew their food well enough to unlock them. And a lot of them pass through our system, with the fiber and out the other end without being absorbed. The juicing process, and this is why juicing was a good idea. The juicing process absolutely pulverizes that cell structure and releases the nutrients into the slurry so that they are easily absorbed by the body. Well, that competition out there, they buy something different. They take fruits and vegetables, you dehydrate it, you grind it up. The particle size is huge. They never, ever have released the nutrients. They skipped a step. Now it's cheaper, even though they charge more money, it's cheaper. But it isn't effective because the nutrients haven't been released through a juicing process. And that's the key. Plus, they've got a warning letter from the FDA and a little bit of scrutiny from the FTC for false advertising, stuff like that. But we won't go into that. I'm just saying, why in the world would you want a cheap imitation? By the way, they've done good marketing for us. If I run into somebody, and I did this week, I kid you not, on the driving range, he says, "Is that the product I see on TV?" I said, no, that's a cheap. By the end of the day, he's a Juice Plus customer. Why would you want a cheap imitation when you could have the original, the one and only, with the research behind it for the same price or even less? I mean, it just makes good sense, Kerry. No doubt about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if they're taking that kind of product, what a door opener for us to sell them Juice Plus, a superior product. I mean, it's really good for our business in the long run. John, in closing, we just completed about 3 years of a health crisis, of course. How does that figure into the future of Juice Plus, in your opinion, today?
Well, I think that all of the demographics that created the opportunity for Juice Plus are stronger than ever. People don't eat more fruits and vegetables than they did 25, 30 years ago. The 5-a-day program did not work. There's a percentage of the population that's making an effort, but most of the people have given up. So fruit and vegetable consumption hasn't changed. America's health in terms of chronic disease is still going up, and the biggest killer coming on strong is obesity. And part of our studies showed not weight loss per se, but increase of lean muscle mass. So plus you've got the stress of everyday life. Is that getting better? My goodness. I mean, I'm out in California right now. We got something called traffic that you may not have in Lafayette, Louisiana, but I'm telling you, life is just as stressful, if not more so. The country's divided, and that creates stress. You know, and healthcare costs are on the rise. It's more difficult to get good quality healthcare and to be able to afford it. All of these things are worse than they were 30 years ago when Juice Plus got started. So people need it now more than ever. And by the way, when we rebuilt the company, we built it to last because it's not based on money. It's based on a mission. It's based on helping other people live better lives. And that's why we've sustained it for over 30 years rather than a shorter period of time with the company's last business model. We want to inspire healthy living around the world and help people everywhere learn how to live a healthier life, and also to help them with their financial challenges, because we've got a great opportunity. So in my opinion, Kerry, all of the demographics, all of the socioeconomic factors that created this opportunity, they're better than ever. And Juice Plus is needed now around the world more than ever. And here we are with the opportunity to do something really good to help people and live a good life at the same time. I mean, what can get better than that? It's awesome.
It really is. John, just thank you so much. Mickey and I want to thank you for everything you've done, not only for our team, but for every team across the USA and other parts of the world. Again, if people can really realize and think about a statement I brought out earlier, here's a product that no one was really certain about at the beginning, but John kept figuring out how to cross the T's, dot the I's, and he was listening to the field. And this product that no one was certain about, for $50 average, not to sound redundant, became a billion-dollar sales company because of this product. This is pretty powerful stuff. John, anything else?
Well, Kerry, I just want to wish everyone, I hope they have a great Thanksgiving and wish them wonderful holidays. It's just a pleasure to be with you. And I honestly feel in my heart that there's great areas of the world we haven't even touched yet. And even in the US, the best is yet to come. And in North America and Canada, I just feel like we are on the verge of another great wave, and I just can't wait to see it. And it's been a wonderful ride watching all of our friends, your friends, all of you working together and succeeding over time. And it's just a thrill to see it and be part of it. And I can't wait for the next episode.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to take it off recording, and I'm going to unmute everyone in just a minute.